Hello, welcome to SquishiVision, where I'm going to react to the first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, a normal amount of range. Rage rather, not range. This is my first time having watched the episode. Literally just watched it, so it's my immediate reaction. I'm gonna squib through it and pick out details and Easter eggs. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just gonna give my immediate kind of thoughts and reactions on the show. When I watched the first trailer, I wasn't put off, but I was a bit wary of some of the humor. More so as a matter of taste rather than as a critique. It seemed quite cheesy. Some of it was like cringy for me, and people like cringe humor. So I was worried it wasn't going to be my show. I really worried I wasn't going to enjoy it. Second trailer, I liked much better. I liked the vibe they were going for. I loved the kind of breaking of the fourth wall that they put in. It just seems, I mean, just like flat out there. Tatiana Maslany is like great in her role as Jennifer Walters, and is just instinctively like charming from the get-go. And maybe that's an acquired taste. Maybe some people don't like that kind of confident charm, but I'm all down for it. So yeah, that was my kind of thoughts going in. This first episode, I mean, okay, one thing first of all. Why are the Cheetos red? Is that just like an American thing because they're orange, like because they're cheese and like I mean I guess some cheese is red, but traditionally cheese is yellowy to orange, and Cheetos are usually yellowy to orange. Why are they red in this? Anyway, that's just a bit of a detour. We start essentially in media res before she's about to go to do a law case, and then we flash back, and the show wastes absolutely no time in a very kind of traditional fourth wall breaking manner in basically introducing her as a superhero. I think that's something that's quite nice actually about the show, but you know, the genre, at least the MCU's kind of ability with the genre, where that it doesn't need to waste time on long origin stories, because both in universe and us as the audience very familiar with the concept of, you know, superheroes and origin stories, and it's like, you know, you don't need to worry about all that. We know what you're here for. So literally, we get a first scene that basically is the character's establishing moment. She's a lawyer. She likes being a lawyer. She's got a confidence about her. She doesn't like men telling her what to do. And then we get into the kind of why she's a She-Hulk. And I think from what I know of the comics and from what I vaguely remember of the cartoons that I perhaps that they did that time know more about, there was a kind of bigger plotline behind why she needed the blood transfusion, but here it seems, I mean, at the moment, and maybe this is something that's going to be explored more in a series or a future show, but insofar as this is kind of exploring at the moment, it's a Sakaran ship from the planet that Hulk was trapped on, tracking him down, and that was like a problem for another day. But it's, you know, very possible that we're gonna get kind of some people have speculated this is going to tie into like a future World War Hulk. Some people have speculated that this is probably a way for the MCU to kind of have both their light-hearted Hulk but then return to a more darker Hulk in the future through the means of having a World War Hulk plot storyline, or something where, I mean, World War Hulk was kind of already dealt with in for Ragnarok, but kind of a more, you know, dealing with that kind of thing. Or maybe it's Secret Wars, I can't remember which comic book it was about. Anyway, the ship appears, it causes the car to crash, and also we get the reveal of why in the kind of between Endgame and here, the cameos from Mark Ruffalo have been him as kind of Smart Hulk and also Normal Hulk, and it's revealed that it's because he has a contraption in his arm, which is a prototype that lets him kind of, I guess, suppress the Hulkness nature of it. But anyway, his blood comes out and it mixes with her blood, and because she has very similar genetic conditions to Bruce, I think is also the case in the cartoons and the comics, she doesn't get killed by it. And it's actually revealed that she's actually a bit more competent with the thing, which I think is also kind of a thing in the cartoons as well. I think it's original for this show. I remember in the cartoons, I mean, the fact that she has agency and capacity over her normal sense, whereas Bruce had to spend ages kind of combining those two identities, is always been consistent, I think, in her plot lines, or at least the fact that she could do it much quicker and sooner than Hulk could is a thing. So yeah, so and then we get basically the bulk of the episode is the Hulk trying to teach her that there's a lot of responsibility behind her role, and she being like, well, I don't want responsibility, I don't want to deal with this, I want to go back to my normal life. And I guess I think the show more or less balances them both being right. Like, it does portray Jennifer as being perhaps a bit too naive over her powers and responsibility, but on the flip side, she is actually more adaptable to the situation than Bruce was, and has more control over her abilities. And it's kind of a middle ground. I think they eventually kind of reach it, maybe a bit too quickly, but they kind of reach that middle ground, and she goes back to her life. We get, and a lot of what we see, a lot of the kind of major set pieces or major moments in here are already in the trailer, which is a pro and a con. The pro being, it means a lot of what we're going to see coming ahead is probably not so much spoiled for us, but kind of the whole, again, I feel like it's going to be a little bit angry, but I loved her constantly running up Bruce. I think that was really wholesome. I liked the way it felt like sibling rivalry rather than undermining kind of thing. If it's the kind of one of the theses of the show about men explaining things to women. There's a section where Bruce is like, you'll be in control of your emotions, you can't be too emotional, and the music kind of gets all serious, but in a way which is kind of being like, it's weird. It's kind of like a musical sigh, but like, or an internal groan kind of noise, and it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of depicting Jennifer's kind of annoyance that someone's explained to her how not to be too emotional when she's a woman living in a world where men constantly tell you not to be emotional. She gets the whole point about her telling Bruce that she's just explaining to her something that she has to deal with every single day as a woman, and that was a good scene. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what, I couldn't tell what they were going for in terms. The tone was a bit mixed. It was good, and then there's a part where she hulked out, and Bruce has this kind of like told you so look, which kind of validates his perspective and undermines hers. But then she's like, oh no, I did that on purpose. But then that's not really addressed in a kind of same way. I don't really know what happened with that scene, but I kind of set up at least. Oh, my sleeves being green screened out. I just realised that. Oh well, it's not noticeable. So yeah, so that, and then I kind of move on from that. I'm not going to comment heavily or hugely on the execution of the thesis here, which is there's a big theme about women confidence versus masculine fragility, which is a thing in real life, and men are on the most part quite fragile and intimidated by women confidence, and the show is addressing that. And I'm not gonna mansplain if that's being overdone or underdone, because that's not really my place to. All I will say on it is, actually, I will do, I'll quote the only review I've read so far, because I've literally just watched the episode. Basically, it's Den of Geeks, Kirsten Howard, who comments that so they've seen the first 4 episodes of the series because for being a reviewer, and apparently the whole, what they say, men etch situations are going to become more heavy-handed coming up, and it's not going to be subtle. It's going to get even more in your face about it. And she says that she obviously supports the whole men being smart, strong, and girl bossing it. But then she comments that it's a rather rote narrative. I don't know what rote means, to be honest. But I guess from what I interpret of what she's saying, I guess it's me mansplaining a women reviewer comment. But at least I'm acknowledging it. Acknowledging that's what I'm doing. From what I'm taking it, it's she's like, well, she goes and says the vibe feels dated as hell. And I guess that's the kind of the thing. It's like just broadly addressing social action narratives, and I guess it's something I can comment on with more authority than necessarily feminist narratives, because as a member of several marginalized groups, I can broadly address the whole empowerment narrative in fiction show. There is often, there's two sides. There's like, do you do it overtly in your face where it might seem pandering, it might seem insincere, it might it might turn people away from social action because they feel like it's detrimenting the show they want to enjoy and watch. Or do you go so subtle that it embeds itself better in the narrative but is more easily lost? And I think it's more of a crime to do the latter than the former. I think a lot of people comment. This is a criticism that's often put towards Star Trek. People say, "Oh well, I don't have issues with Star Trek being woke these days. I just don't like how in the face it is." Or it's a criticism I think of a lot of certain SheHulk episodes of Doctor Who, where like, "Oh, I don't mind the message. I just didn't like how it was so in your face." And they're like, "Oh, well, is it better in the past because it was more subtle?" And that may be true, but also, we had subtle messages in the past, and people either A, ignored it or B, didn't learn enough from it because it's having to repeat messages today. People can watch old Star Trek and be like, "Oh, shooty laser, bang bang," and not have to worry about the kind of subtle message. Even though it was relatively in your face even then, people can more easily ignore it. I'm like, well, do people deserve to have the opportunity to ignore things? And I think maybe sometimes we actually have to be more in your face about things because then you can't ignore the message. There are people today who, like, for me, a lot of what is being put in the show seems in my face because I identify with pro-feminist ideals. I acknowledge that women have to deal with the exhaustion of men every single day. So this to me is like telling me things I hope I already know, and things I try to every day learn to be better at. Not all of viewers are like that, and so maybe this is more of a message for them. And it might seem, but there's, I mean, again, there are many women reviewers who I'm sure will comment on it and give a better experience perspective on it. I guess it's how I feel when you have shows about disability and it's just about a disability. Like you have protagonists who are disabled and their entire story arc is about a disability, even if it's not the whole really annoying, really problematic storyline of overcoming a disability. Even if it's, even if that's not a plot line, it's normally the whole arc is around this disability. I'm like, well, we're people too. We have broader experiences in life other than having to. But on the flip side, we also do have to talk a lot about disability. We always have to self-advocate. It's a big part of our life, so we can't ignore it completely. This is what my dissertation was actually about. So I feel like I can transfer that a bit to the kind of the whole feminist thing here. It's like, well, women are more, even feminist women are more than just shout for equal rights, but equally it's a big part of who they are. And there are people who are real. And also, fiction is meant to be exaggerated. Like you can't be realistic in fiction. It's very hard to be realistic in fiction because fiction by design is meant for telling a message. And so if you're not actively and somewhat overtly telling a message, then you lose a lot of that in the background. Your message should be front and center. That's generally what good fiction is. And even what we call subtle isn't necessarily subtle, it's just comparatively subtle. So I'm probably not going to comment too much more about that going forward because again I don't think it's my place to. I think there are plenty of women reviewers who have the lived experience to give a much more nuanced and better explanation on it. I can see it being a criticism. I can see definitely being a criticism a lot of male viewers will have. I think it was fine. I was a bit confused by what Bruce's reaction was, and I think it's because here's the thing, like obviously you kind of want your male positive characters in your show to be progressive because then you're encouraging your male viewers to look up to the ideal, and it kind of seemed like he was being dismissive in his demeanor. I'm not sure, it's hard to really I couldn't tell what with that scene. Also seemed confusing that Bruce was not able to stop a jeep, like find out was enough to push him away, but whatever. I mean, I guess his feet were on the ground, but that's a kind of a him problem. So yeah, they she resolves to go back to her life, seemingly in control of what the things are, and pretty much in that, despite wanting to basically keep her condition secret from everyone except her closest friend and her parents, she immediately, in the first case, I guess after that time, has to Hulk out because someone randomly breaks through, I think the character's called Tiana or something, breaks through a wall and she basically has the superhero out. basically kind of validating the whole boost something about living 2 lives. And it's a great moment where she transforms back into a person and it is like, I'm not ready to give my closing statement. I'm like, yes, that's a badass lore thing I like to see, because I like courtroom dramas and I like the whole kind of take back moments. I'm a big Phoenix Wright fan. So yeah, this episode was fine. I wasn't cringed out by any of the humour. I think there's probably only one moment actually that cringed me out during the trailer, and that's probably the part I'm not looking forward to the least. But hopefully that'll be like the kind of whole dating plotline I'm not particularly looking forward to. But I hope that won't be a huge part of the show. I enjoyed this episode, and I guess next week we'll see more. I'm gonna go now react to Dungeons and Dragons trailer after finishing breakfast and doing a poop because I forgot to do any other day. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you when I next. Well, yeah, later on today. All right. Oh yeah, I always forget to do this part of it. Oh. There we go. Success.